We saw the greatest swimming against the tide example in football history yesterday. So
Really?
we've got a tsunami of exits at Richmond, as we know, a tsunami. And yesterday that was countered in spectacular fashion by a whopping contract extension for Noah Balta. Safe to say Balta's going nowhere because he signed a 7-year contract extension. It keeps him at Richmond until the end of 2032. He was contracted for next year when he was due to become a free agent, which probably can't be underplayed. But this text from John off the IMR. Corn, I'm up at 4 a.m. in Perth just to hear your thoughts on the Balta deal. Bizarre given his recent injury history and where the Tigers are at. Why not just a 5-year deal, says John?
No, it's. I think clubs just do this to. I'm seriously at the point of thinking clubs do this just to annoy me. Like that's like because it's getting
Turn it up.
It's getting out of hand. It's out of control. But I just want to hold my thoughts because this may be the subject of the list.
Oh, okay. Here we go. All right, good.
I
like where your head's at already.
So the list this morning is the reasons why Richmond shouldn't have given Noah Balta a 7-year extension. That's the
How
list.
many
That's
reasons
the
have you
list.
got?
I'm up to 5. And I've got a couple more.
5 reasons why Richmond shouldn't have given Noah Balta a 7-year extension.
That's the topic of the list.
Oh, my Lord. I thought I had a crazy list. You know what my list was? What things that move faster than this trade period. I might get to that list as well. We might even run 2 lists today because I'm up to 5 as well. Things that move faster than the 2024 trade
Charlie
period.
Dixon running around the forward line.
Or Ben Brown's goal routine might feature. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. Maybe even Joe Biden. He might get a mention. We're double listing today. So, it was a. So this is the question I'm looking forward to asking Danny Daly. Now, I know it's not his immediate sort of modus operandi at Brisbane. That's more the chief executive, Greg Swan, and it would more be Dom Ambrosio, their list manager. But why does this happen? There has to be a method to the madness. The free agency trigger is obviously huge. Spreading the money out is a factor. Balancing the book, but there must be other reasons. It can't be as simple as well. Everyone else is doing it, so we have to do it. Can it?
The best I asked John Longmire about this throughout the year, and because they've done some rippers, like Blakey's 2031 or something like that. Errol Goulden signed a long one. Mills signed a ridiculous one, and he essentially said, until the AFL come in and put a limit on it, it'll keep happening because. To your point, I think it's as simple as if we don't do it, someone else will.
Yeah, and rivals. So an example
is that simple.
So the pre-agents are massive. So next year, all the free agents. This is Tom de Koning, it's Andrew Brayshaw, it's Luke Davies-Uniacke, Jeremy Cameron, the Bont, Oscar Allen, and just with Andrew Brayshaw, clubs think. And maybe this is why it happens. Clubs think they can pry out these pre-agents and put real pressure on clubs. So Andy Brayshaw, for example, and this has made the news in the last couple of days, but it's been going for a while. The Dockers have been a bit worried in recent times because rival clubs weren't just interested, but they felt emboldened that they felt they could actually get Andy Brayshaw out in this period. Now, that appears to have been shut right down in more recent times, but there had been whispers among clubs over here. St Kilda was chief among them. They thought for a time they could get Andy Brayshaw out of that football club before he reached free agency. So, and I know North Melbourne supporters, we get texts and calls on them just about daily on Luke Davies-Uniacke. So maybe that's an added factor to it as well. But Noah Balta, huge news, 7-year contract extension. Josh Gabelich and Tom Morris. So yesterday, Collingwood, their search for a new head of football because we know it won't be Brendan Bolton. And we know also that Graham Wright is now at the Blues. So Justin Reid, who we discussed yesterday as well, given his performance in front of the camera on Monday, long-time list boss at the Crows, has been sounded out for the head of football position at Collingwood, or soon will be. And Frank Panisi, part of the furniture at Melbourne Storm as the head of football for so long, has been sounded out by the Pies as well.
Even Frank knows AFL is a better game than NRL. He wants to jump ship. Code Wars.
Does he?
Code Wars. Yeah. He wants to come to the AFL. He's like, you know what? I'm sick of
Kane was right.
I'm sick of seeing blokes run into each other 5 times and kick it. I'm going to come and actually have some excitement in the world of AFL. But I'm being a little bit humorous there, but not that it was funny. But Justin Reid has the connection with Craig Kelly, of course, from TLA, the
Yep.
Justin Reid was
Long-time manager there.
Might have been Flying Start at the time, and
I think it was Elite Sports Pro.
Elite Sports, he might be at start. I think Flying Start, then Elite Sports, and now TLA, and worked. Craig Kelly was his boss there as well. So there is that long-term connection to the Collingwood Footy Club.
So watch this space on that. I made some calls on Jake Stringer, like a lot of people did yesterday. There is an expectation that 56 is going to get it done from a Giants point of view. Now that will be a 2-year contract if GWS, and there were some key meetings yesterday, formally tick off on it and go for it, but there's expectation it's going to happen. It'll be a 2-year deal, 56 the other way, which means, Kane, who's paying what comes into the mix there as well.
What a statement it is. I wasn't sure we'd ever get to this point because I just didn't think, and I've said a couple of times through our time on Trade Radio that he may have to go back to Essendon because it just wasn't that many suitors, which there wasn't, and the Giants have come seemingly pretty late. But what a statement this is from the Bombers. I'm all for it. They've essentially basically just said, pack your bags, like pick 56. Like whether that pick even gets used, I'm not sure, but they're clearly just wanting to get him out the door. And this is the first real big statement that Brad has made from a list point of view that says, all right, enough's enough. We're going in a different direction off the back of what the president said at the best and fairest as well. So I'm not critical of it. I think they've managed this beautifully, and it does leave them a bit short in the forward line and short of a couple of match winners, but maybe that's bigger than this. So if John Ralph from the Herald Sun is to be believed, last night he tweeted that Collingwood is not prepared to trade 13 and 21 to the Power because it believes they would use pick 13 to get 19 and 22 off Sydney, in effect getting 3 back-end first-rounders for Houston. They're only keen to trade 13 in Joe Richards. In what world does Collingwood care what Port Adelaide do with the pick that they give him for their player? Like, when has this ever been? So I don't know who's on the hot. Maybe Johnny Ralph's on the hot seat here. I'm going to put.
Well, he's clearly spoken to someone close to this situation.
I'm going to put John and his sources, and by extension, if it is true, Collingwood on the hot seat. This is maybe the first time. I've been doing trade radio for a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
This is maybe the first time I've ever seen a club holding up a deal because they're concerned about what the other club is going to do with the asset that they gave them for their asset. Bizarre. Well, we're seeing some bizarre things, but this is right up there. So John's on the hot seat. Collingwood, if this is true and the right information, you're on the hot seat. You're holding up a deal because you're worried what Port Adelaide are going to do with pick 13. Who cares? You got your player. It doesn't matter. Port can do whatever they want with it. Yeah. And John's sources behind this.
While we're on things that we might struggle to believe, we're not saying they're not true because clearly people get told things, and I'm the same, so I'm not casting any judgment. Just while we're on the subject of what you might struggle to believe, off the IMR text line, do you believe the Clayton Oliver story last night? I think it's the Sam McClure in the Age about him taking or being willing to take a pay cut to get to Geelong. Now, not many players have done this over time, especially with players who have the sort of tenure and the sort of finances that they stand to earn, like Clayton Oliver. Do you believe he'd be willing to take a pay cut to get to the Cats? It's a toughie.
Yeah, it's hard. I do believe, and I don't know. I mean, there's pay cuts and there's pay cuts. If he's said, "I'll take $100,000 pay cut and to help you get through," and Melbourne going to pay some, and
well, that's not going to make any difference.
But if it's so he's set to earn in this article from Sam, 1.3, I think it was, $1.3 million. So if he's saying I'm going to take a $500,000 pay cut per year and play for $800,000, then I'm struggling to believe that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's pay cuts and there's pay cuts. But it did add, and we can get to this and discuss it and get you involved in this. It did add further fuel to this story that just really won't go away. And it is hanging. He said that he's been training the house down. I love those sort of preseason stories down where he's from. And he's
back to the farm, back to the land.
Back to the farm, like sort of Rocky IV
Cue the
style.
Rocky music, yep.
And he's determined to get out, really. So we'll see how Melbourne want to play this.
If I was Brisbane And if I was Carlton, I'd still be exhaling my sigh of relief that the AFL's bidding system changes and draft value index alterations have been held over for another 12 months because Levi Ashcroft's about to land, so Sam Marshall up there from the Academy, and the Camporelli twins down at the Blues. They don't need to have the next pick to match rival bids. They've just got to give up the points value of the pick, of course, which we know are the rules, when a rival club bids, if they bid on one of their players. And they get the discount too, 20%. So next year it all changes.
Tell me how it changes.
No points attached to picks after 54. So once you get to the end of the third round, those picks are worth 0. So you can't, to your point earlier, you can't get picks in the late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and package them all up anymore. And the discount will be reduced to 10%, not 20%. So I think it was the right call to delay because clubs had already planned appropriately. Some would argue against that, but next year it could look very, very different. And it would affect a club, for example, we spoke about Tom McGuan, the father-son due for Collingwood. Who knows where he sits next year, but it could look very different for Collingwood next year when it comes to amassing those back-end picks to match a bid early on in the draft.
Yeah, I like it. Really, really lucky. It's a far better system. It still doesn't feel like it's perfect, but it is better. So you're right. I mean, Carlton, I kind of like what Carlton have done this trade period. Like I kind of don't mind them not being all in for Houston. Like I really like the fact that their preference and their language has been about the draft. Now, of course, I would love to have Houston, but you can't have it all. And if you got to have your priorities, as I said, you got to know where your list is. You got to know where your deficiencies are. You got to know how many times you've been to the draft in recent years. Is there a gulf of players in a certain age bracket? And that's the really important thing, that you're all aligned on that. So I don't hear Michael Voss come out and say, "Oh, give me players." It feels like everyone is playing their role that they are employed to do perfectly at the Blues. Now, that's not to say that they won't come late for Houston, but for me, just on what you're reading between the lines, their priorities are to go to the draft. So both Camporellis, as you said, I'm a huge believer in both of those and what they will become, and great value for the footy club for a long time. And then getting right into the front of the first round, I think is a good move. And if you can do those two things and get Houston, absolute bonus. But if it's just the first two, then are you as a Carlton man okay with that? Like, how have you found the way that they're playing it at the moment?
Oh, I think you've got to respect any club that just sticks to their guns, and they've been the same for months. That 12 was not going to be traded, and they were going to take that to the draft, and that hasn't changed. Even when Dan Houston became available, I think Michael Voss, if he was sitting here with us, would admit he really wants Dan Houston in his side. Yeah, but they're not going to compromise. And the other part of it is, they are tight in the cap. They are so tight in the salary cap, the Blues. There's a reason that Matt Kennedy's on the open market. There's a reason Lewis Young is on the open market. Jacob Wiedering, as well. Jacob Wiedering's about to sign a huge deal. They got Tom De Koning next year. They're going to have Sam Walsh out soon.
Who's their highest paid player? Would it be Mackay or Cripps or Kerno?
Oh, Kerno would be in there as well, I reckon. Take your pick between those three.
Would they have three players on their list earning $1 million plus?
Yeah, and Wiedering and rightfully so, would be around the mark as well. So they are really tight in the cap. Some say too tight. So I think that factors into it as well. So if they miss on Dan Houston, who comes at a price, then, so be it, I think. But they've presented their offer anyway. So they're just sitting back basically now, Kane. They've made it clear what their offer is. It's their future first and future second for Gold Coast pick 13. But even if they get 13, you speak to Port Adelaide privately and they're like, well, everyone just assumes 13's it in a bit. We might say otherwise.
Well, and I just think, and people will say, oh, you've got your Port Adelaide hat on here. I don't at all. This is more if whoever gets him, whether it's North Melbourne, Collingwood or Carlton, and I hope I've made this point really clear. He's the best player in the trade period, Dan Houston. Like he's not getting the credit that he deserves for how good of a footballer he is. So that's exciting for Collingwood. If they're the ones that get him, he's a gun, Dan. And I don't think whether people haven't observed the way that he plays enough and how he defends and his versatility and what he can, and his ball use is just as, so he's the best player in this trade period. Now, he's not going to have the most value because Shea Bolton's younger and, has a bigger upside probably. But in terms of consistency in the role that he plays, and he's not going to get the deal that Dan Rioli gets, as we've discussed at length. But I just want to make the point that Houston is an absolute star. He's a two-time All-Australian for a reason, and he's getting better. Like every year he's got better.
Yeah.
So he's a gun, and whoever gets him, like they won't be disappointed with what they give up to get him.
Kane, you've been inspired by the whopping recommitment of Noah Balta at Richmond, a new 7-year deal for him through till the end of 2032.
So the topic of the list this morning is why Richmond shouldn't have given Noah Balta a 7-year contract extension. We'll start with number 7. You can put this in any order that you like, but the facts are he's injury prone. He's played 20 games or more in only one of his 6 seasons. So like a lot of his teammates at Richmond, he's just not on the park often enough. Reason number 6, they did not learn from the calamitous, do you like that word? Calamitous 7-year deals for Taranto and Hopper. How did the 7-year deals not that long ago for Taranto and Hopper work out for Richmond? You would think that they would learn from the disaster of the 7-year deals they handed to 2 players that they shouldn't have only a couple of years ago. Item number 5 here. If he did leave as a free agent, so qualifies for free agency in 12 months' time, if he did leave, you know what they would have got if he left? They probably would have got pick 2. So don't be scared of a player leaving as a free agent. You would have got a Josh Battle-like deal because some other stupid club would have paid him ridiculous Josh Battle-like money. And with Richmond finishing down the bottom of the ladder for the next 3 to 4 seasons, that pick would have come after your first pick in the first round, which has the potential to have been pick 2. So if you're looking at it, would you rather give Noah Balta 7 years, or would you just wait, see if he leaves as a free agent and capitalise and take pick 2? I think I would be taking pick 2 for Noah Balta. They don't know where to play him, is item number 4. Is he a forward? Is he a back? I'm telling you, he's definitely a back, mind you. Like he should never ever play forward again. But for some reason, and maybe due to injury and necessity, they've tried to play him as a forward. He's not a forward. Like he kicked 12 goals from 19 games this year. He's not a forward. He doesn't look like a forward. There's nothing about him that says he could be a dominant forward in football. He's just not. So they got to sort that out first and find out where they are actually going to play him. He finished 11th in the best and fairest this year of a team that won 2 games. 11th in the best and fairest in a team that won 2 games. That's like finishing 25th in Brisbane's best and fairest. Like to finish 11th in a team that won 2 games. Dion Prestia played 6 less games and finished higher than him in the best and fairest. So even his own club and coaches don't rate him. 11th in the best and fairest. Now, according to Champion Data, who do the ratings, and I use this as a guide. I don't think it's gospel, and I never have said that it is gospel, but it is a guide. He's the 15th rated player at Richmond. So I'll give you some names who Champion Data see as better players at his own football club than Noah Balta. Mansell, Ross, Miller, and Bauer are all better players than Noah Balta. He signed just a reminder, he signed a contract till the end of
we're not having that though. We're not having that though, are we?
I'm just saying, I'm using it as a guide.
We
often do.
We're not having that.
All the Fox Footy guys use this as gospel, and
there's an asterisk on that reason.
Why?
Well, you can't be serious. You subscribe to that?
I'm just
you aligning yourself with that assessment?
No, I'm not. I'm using this as a guide, and the ratings that I've used before as a guide. I'm just telling you, Richmond, Champion Data, who rate ball use and all of the factors that go into what is an effective player, have him as the 15th rated player at Richmond. And item number 1 on a similar line is that in the competition, now remember, he's one of probably 4 or 5 players that have a contract the longest in the game. He's the 287th rated player in the AFL. And Richmond have just given this guy a 7-year contract extension. So you know who's rated higher than Noah Balta? Charlie Dixon. And he's on one leg and he's retired. So that's where it sits. So they're all of the reasons. I sound like I'm being really cruel here. I'm not. He's a good, effective footballer, Noah Balta, and in every team, a coach in whatever team it is, even the best, they would find a role for Noah Balta and they would have him in their side. But to think that you would be smart by giving him a 7-year extension until the end of 2032. It gets more bizarre by the year when I see these deals, and at some point they're just going to come back to absolutely kill you, like we're seeing with Melbourne at the moment. Like Angus Brayshaw, as much as we're sensitive to that, there is the risk that can happen with players, and you get stuck. Clayton Oliver, we're seeing it. We're seeing it with Sean Darcy and everything. Or Kane's on about long-term contracts again. I'm just right on long-term contracts. I'm just right. Like I'm happy to say that, and I can be arrogant about it. But I am right on this. I'll continue to be right on it. And this is nothing but disaster written all over it for Richmond once again. Like they could have got pick 2 for him if he left. See you later. Like pack your bags. Like the Saints are happy for Josh Battle to pack their bags. So there's the 7 reasons why Richmond shouldn't have given Noah Balta 7 years.
As strong a list as we've had on the early trade
Yeah,
in this
and I'm happy.
trade period.
So I had a conversation with just lifting the lid a little bit here on some behind the scenes things, because I had a conversation with the digital team yesterday. I just felt like there was a bit of negativity coming through from everything that was being posted. I was like, well, hang on, we say a lot of positive stuff, so be okay for you to put out online some positive things from time to time, and they were accepting of that. But I'm more than happy for this to be posted, like as the list. Like this is, you can post every single one of those 7 items. So if Nick and Slevo and the boys and Johnny are listening, I'm more than happy for this to go out there,
listening,
because it's just accurate. Like it's just
it's accurate. I'm
not
right.
shocked.
I'm more than happy
I'm
for
not
this to go out
shocked.
there.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by this, but it just becomes more bizarre by the year. Like Noah Balta, like he's the 287th rated player in football, has just signed until the end of 2032. Oh, but someone else would have given him a deal. Yeah, and if they did, you would have got picked 2. Happy days. See you later. Like just so I'm happy for any Richmond fan to come up and they'll say, "Oh, Jude Kane's a Richmond hater." Well, come on and have a discussion with me about why this has been a good move for them.